Good morning. My name is Scott Walker, and I'm a retired fisheries biologist with the state of Alaska Fish and Game. And we're here this morning at South Point Higgins Beach to experience a low tide. It's a minus tide, which means for all the locals, get down to your beach and see things you don't always see. So we're here, an event, a beach day, a virtual beach day sponsored by Lori Otez with the Fast Track, Lori Otez, and Jennifer Wickert with the PACE program here in town. They couldn't have a beach day because of all of this virus stuff, and so we decided let's have a virtual beach day. And so Lori set this all up, and we practiced with it yesterday, and so we're ready to do a virtual beach day. And so we're here right at the tide level. This morning it's about a -4 tide, and so that makes a difference of about 23 feet. So at the high tide it'd be about 23 feet deeper here, and all of this area here would be covered. So if you look around here at this particular spot, it's almost entirely covered with kelp. In just a few moments, it's about 45 minutes or half hour before the minus tide, all of these rocks behind me will be exposed. And basically this is the area that has the most dense wildlife, just because these animals don't like to be uncovered with water. As you move up the intertidal area, you have animals that are more able to handle the stresses of low salinity and sunshine and fresh water. And so we're just going to do a little looking around here. It's, of course, very critical whenever you, as a human experiencing the habitat on these beaches, someone else's home, you want to be careful where you walk. You want to be careful not to disturb very much. If whatever you pick up, carefully put back down. You know, this time of year we find a lot of stressed animals around that people handle and they just kind of toss aside. So if you lift up a rock, put everything back. If you grab something, handle it carefully. If you carry a bucket with some water, you can put your animal into the bucket, look at it, and then when you're done, gently put it back. And all of that makes for a continuing life cycle here that people can enjoy for years to come. So at first, we'll just talk about what I just kind of see around here, right around my feet. So it must be probably about a -3 or so by now. And these animals right here that we see, they don't really want to be out of the water. They want to be in the water, and so the water that goes away, it maybe surprises them a little bit, or maybe they're trying to chase the water down, but whatever it is, these critters don't like to be out. So I try and leave them in the water as much as possible. But in this particular area, one of the most prolific animals, at least the largest animal that you see, is the red sea urchin. And I'm going to grab one here real quick. This is a red sea urchin, and they like this area right here because they can eat the kelp that's here. If you look back, you can see that the urchins have pretty much denuded all of the kelp off into the abyss there. And so they're feeding on this row, we call it the kelp line. And so they're fat and happy and sassy and all of that. Now this is Jasper, by the way. He's my favorite beach dog, and he just loves to hang out at the beach. But we have really 2 species here locally. There's a third one out on the coast of Craig that's called a purple urchin, but we have a red urchin and we have a green urchin. And you can clearly see that the red has a much larger spine, and the green has a very short and spiny, or a very short spine there. So those are our 2 main species. We want to put them back into the water. Now these are commercially harvested. Inside each one of these is 5 skeins of eggs, which are very appealing to the Asian palate. Not quite so much in the US, but still it's gained some popularity and is quite valuable as a resource. And so it's kind of a mix here. You know, for those that have lived in Ketchikan for a while, you probably noticed that the green urchins were not here for many years. In fact, just recently we started to see more and more green urchins. And our theory is that if you look around here, you'll notice something that's absent. And several years ago, we had a sea star wasting disease event throughout all of the Pacific Northwest. And the large sunflower stars pretty much disappeared. So billions of these large predators, these huge sun stars that we used to use for our gardens years ago, and we used to see everywhere, they're all gone. And we even looked around here and have seen just one or two in recent years. So I think that both the green urchins and also abalone populations have rebounded and are much larger based on all of that. So you gotta be very careful too, because if you step on one of those, you can get your spines in your shoe, in your finger. So I always like to use gloves. But now, of course, that's one animal of a multiple number of animals around here. Another animal that's quite common around here is sea stars. I mentioned that what used to be one of the largest predators, the sunflower stars, are gone. And it looks like these guys, these are leather stars. It kind of looks like they've taken over one of the major components of the ecosystem with those other guys gone. And these are leather stars. They're all over the beach area. There's probably 100 or so. And as you go further up the intertidal zone, you'll see other species. And the ochre star, which we'll look at a little bit later, we'll see up there. But these have a unique little characteristic as well. They smell like garlic. And so if you smell one, it's quite unique in its garlic taste. But anyway, they don't mind being out of the water as much. You can see these were just here. I didn't collect those. They just are hanging out. But we'll put this one back in. So I was looking for another animal that's quite common around here is a sea cucumber. And we have two main species here. And one's called a California sea cucumber, which I don't really see right here around me. So we'll look at one, and we have one in a bucket over there. The other one, which is less conspicuous, is the orange sea cucumber. So this particular individual is a little bit different, and we'll be able to compare both of them a little later. This individual keeps this part of his body under a rock, and you'll see its tentacles feeding. And so as you walk around here, you can see little orange feeding tentacles that are sticking out from under the rocks. And so this is an orange sea cucumber. Something else kind of unique, I was looking around this morning and I came across a couple of nudibranchs. Now nudibranch is another name for a sea slug. And this is a yellow one. I'm not sure if it's a lemon peel. I think it's another yellow nudibranch, and I don't know its exact name, but it's a sea slug. It has a great big fleshy foot, and it's quite beautiful. It's about 2 inches long, and there was a pair of them right there behind me in the water. I want to be careful with these guys because he's not very happy. All his antennae and his sensory organs are all sucked in. And we also found this interesting little crab right here behind us. This has actually got quite a standard name called a fuzzy crab. Not very exciting, and he's fuzzy. And most of us that are shrimp fishermen around here have our subsistence and personal use pots out. We'll see these quite a bit in our pots. But this guy was just hiding out there behind me. So here's a little crab called a fuzzy crab. As I mentioned, we've had a little resurgence in abalone populations. There was a very few around for many years, but as I believe that when the sunflower stars went away, I think that the abalone populations rebounded. So there's a few of them on the beach here. This one's an undersized one. It had to be 3.5 inches to harvest. So the locals here usually pick off anything that gets above that. But they have a big fleshy foot, a little more muscular than we saw there in the nudibranch. But fleshy foot, it's got a shell, quite unique. It has little holes in its shell. Most of us have seen one before. So when the tide goes out, it can clamp down and it can still breathe through these little holes. But that's an abalone. So just going to talk a little bit about what else we see around here. Of course, it's hard to walk down here. There is, especially in the springtime, everything is covered with kelp. And at one time I came down here and counted about 40 plus species of kelp. There's all sorts of kelp, three-ribbed kelp. It's very conspicuous with 3 ribs. Different kinds of laminaria kelps. There's a green, almost like a cellophane style kelp. It's called sea lettuce. You can see that, and that's actually edible, a very thin, almost paper thin kelp, which is ulva or sea lettuce. There's small bull kelp plants along here. So basically there's all sorts of algae all competing for this space. And what's very interesting is if you look up, there's zones. in the intertidal area. And so you'll see all of this dense kelp, and then you'll go up a little bit height and you'll see like a line. So all of the kelp, a lot of the kelp species like their particular spot in the intertidal zone. And they're not higher and they're not lower. Some are throughout the entire area. Rockweed, which is a real popular one, is at the very top and is large, but you don't see it as a rule deeper. And as you go down, the species composition change. But there's red kelps, there's green kelps. There was another one here I was looking at. This is a really beautiful type of red kelp. It's like an inch wide, a little frilly red ribbon kelp. And so looking around here, there's just all sorts of kelp species, and it makes it a very difficult situation to walk on. So we're going to move a little bit and look at a few other things. So we're about midway between the tide line, and just one more thing I was going to show you. Another sea star that is prevalent in this area is the ochre star. They come in two colors, same species. They're able to handle this tide line and a tide pool that has a little less salinity and a little more temperature gradient. And so these guys are all over in this zone. So that's about all we're going to talk about today. Thanks for joining. It's a beautiful day here. Just be reminded to respect the animals, and if you take something, keep it in a bucket with water, put it back. Try not to step on things. If you lift a rock up, put it back. A lot of people want to utilize this beach for years to come, so just be safe and have a great day. We'll see you down here checking out the low tide. Thank you.